I would recommend anyone to get this book. It is Why Does He Do That by Lundy Bancroft. Hi, welcome back to Solitude with Soleil. This is part two, where I share my experiences, my journey with dating, red flags, warning signs, just how it all ties into the human experience and making better choices for the future. So, for this one, I want to talk about the myths. Before I go into the parts of the red flags, I want to talk about the myths or the mythology that we have when we spot certain behaviors in a person. Because it's a cumulative experience, there is no one size fits all to a particular situation, but it's up to you to really explore what type of myths or belief system you have about red flags, about certain behaviors, and particularly for women who grew up in really volatile homes. Maybe you witnessed um, a male figure doing these behaviors as well, and so it's really familiar to you. And in order to survive through that environment, you had to make excuses for them. You had to make excuses for their behavior, and you had to love them in spite of to survive. Just know you're not that little girl anymore, in the most kind way, that you are not that little girl anymore that needs to do that. That is not your role. That is not your job. Your job is not to fix anyone. Your job is not to solve anyone's issues. The responsibility is on them to do that. And you are of so much value. Your inner child is proud of you for even making it thus far. If you're here today, if you are reading a book even about how to spot the signs for the future, it means you're doing the work. It means that you love yourself. It means that you value yourself enough to really educate yourself and arm yourself with knowledge to protect yourself for the future. And that's a bold step. I admire you for that. I admire myself for that. So let's go into the myths that we have before we even go into the red flags. When we see something kind of weird about someone, what myths do we have? And I struggled with a few of these. The author goes on to say that we could say, "Oh, he's just crazy like that," or he just loves really fast. Like he just puts his all in fast, but it's not a bad thing. He feels so bad about himself, so I just need to build up his self image a little. I'm so guilty of that one. I'm so guilty of that one. And that is a responsibility I need to take, because it is not my job to fix someone. And I have inner wounds and I have core um, cycles that I need to work on and break. And sometimes when we go in to fix someone, we are also ignoring our own shortcomings and our own needs that we need to address. And yeah, another thing is, oh, he just loses it sometimes. He's insecure. You say, oh, he's just insecure about himself. That's why he did that. No. Another one is you try to go back to his upbringing, like, oh, his mom treated him that way. So now he just has a grudge on women and that he just takes it out on me. The author says those are myths. Those aren't the driving forces of the behavior of these type of men. Um, he says the important way to really look at this is that they get you to look off in the wrong direction so you won't notice where the real action is. So sometimes do you just think, oh yeah, his ex just hurt him really badly, or you know, he just he just wears his heart on his sleeve type of thing. And there's a degree to everything. And so when you look in that direction and you start making excuses for that person, it's easy for you to enable that behavior. It's easy for you to let it slide under the rug. But again, it's all about soothing your inner child, letting your inner child know you don't have to do that anymore. It is not your responsibility to do that anymore. You may have had to play that role, and be kind to that inner little girl, that inner child, because she got you where you are today. If she weren't fighting the fact that you're still alive, you have fought through and you have went through a lot and you didn't give up, and she got you to where you are today. But he goes on to say in the book that do not try to take on the task of figuring out why this person behaves the way that they do. He wants you to be in a convoluted maze, trying to twist your way to puzzle over him, to try to figure him out, to try to fix the malfunctioning parts of him, to make him a better man, to, bring him to his full potential. But you need to focus on the behavior and really understand that these things are a consistent pattern from person to person. It is not all about you. Um, he tries to fill your head with like distortions and excuses to keep you like having like a lot of self-doubt and a lot of self weight about yourself. But really and truly, his behavior is about his own cultural beliefs towards women and his own societal views toward women. Um, some of the times we think, oh, yeah, he was abused as a child, his previous partner hurt him, or if he does certain things, it's because of love. He holds in his feelings too much, he overthinks, he thinks too much, he just loses control a little bit. He hates women. He has a low self-esteem. He just has poor communication skills. You may even think, oh, women are just as at fault for it as men. Or um the thing is, people commonly think that there is a root for people's behavior that it has nothing to do with. And this expert goes on to say that the sole purpose for someone being that way is because of control and their own societal views toward who women should be for them, to fulfill their own needs, a lack of empathy, a lack of consideration. And it quite literally has nothing to do with how his ex partner treated him, about how his mom treated nothing. It has everything to do with him and his character. It really has a lot to do with cultural upbringing, cultural beliefs, and systems. For sure, for sure. And it, these things, he describes that they are myths. You know, particularly one of the myth he goes through that I experienced in my previous time of talking to someone. He suffers from a low self-esteem. He just needs his self-esteem shored up, is verbatim what the author said. But he says that we tend to pour our precious energy into supporting them, massaging their ego, hoping that if you keep stroking them, if you keep giving them validation, admiration, that it will change how they behave. If you praise them and you boost them, it may buy you some time, but it's only a matter of time before it pops up again. So when you try to improve someone's feelings about themselves, the problem tends to get worse. These type of men, they expect catering. They expect more positive attention. They expect you to put up with and be entitled and demand. Um, so he gets used to that treatment and escalates his demands for it. When someone um is massaged because you have this myth or belief that, oh, it's because their self-esteem is low, it's a reward for him. He gets you to do his work. the work he should be doing, the work he should be putting into journal to face his inner child, to face his emotional wounds. He gets a free therapist, and you cater to him emotionally. Um, so you tend to only give him more time for that behavior to get worse. It's like positive reinforcement. You give them attention, whether it be negative. I mean, negative reinforcement, I mean, where even though the attention you're giving them is negative, by screaming on top of your lungs, like, how could you? Or by lecturing them, or by showing them why their behavior is wrong, the only thing in their mind is, you're talking to me. You're still here. There's a part of you that still wants to be here. Now, I don't want it to be like the last time where it's 20 minutes in and I haven't like gone through the warning signs. So let me get back to the warning signs. But that was a really pivotal point that I wanted to make sure, because we have certain myths that make us think that warning signs aren't warning signs. Um because that was particularly how my last situation ended up, where I was like, oh, he feels really bad about himself, so he would never do certain things, he would never talk to certain people. But that's exactly what they would do. And that is a result of their own behavior, and that has nothing to do with your worth and your value. What determines your worth is how you treat yourself. Um um and how you like walk away once you pick up these things. You pick yourself up and go. You pick yourself up and go. I'm trying to find back the page where he goes through the warning signs that I was doing in part one. So we talked about how negatively he will talk about his previous partners. And then the second point was, he does favors for you that you don't want, or he puts on a show of generosity that makes you uncomfortable. It's like you're not able to tell him no, like, I don't want you to do this. It creates like this sense of like you're in debt to him. um Even when you tell the person, no, I don't want this, they still find a way to push it onto you. Someone should be able to respect that you just don't want something. And it's a psychological phenomenon termed as love bombing. It is where this person showers you with gifts, love, affection, attention, really too early and really inappropriately and disproportionately, to begin the cycle of devaluing you and wearing down your self esteem. So, the next point is, he's disrespectful toward you. Disrespect means he sneers at your opinions. He has these views about women that are so absurd. I've heard quite a few, like, oh, talking down about the logic of women, talking about how women operate in this way, that way. Um, that is a form of him communicating a lack of respect for women as a species, and it's rooted in misogyny. A thing I look for is how men talk about women who decide to wear just simple things as like makeup. I understand you have a preference, but going on to bash women about wearing makeup when we bear children, we bear life, are we handle so much, like, really, you're concerned about a little makeup? Come on, dude. Um, Disrespect, the author says, can also take the form of idealizing you. Like, he puts you on this pedestal, like you're the perfect woman or the goddess, different from the rest, but it doesn't allow you to be human. And very soon, once you make a single mistake, all of that will come crashing down. He sees you as like a fantasy, and when you fail to live up to the image he has of you in his mind, oh, you're just like the rest. Next, he goes straight to the point. He says he's controlling. So he says that control is subtle, and it starts in subtle ways. But don't doubt yourself if even if that person doesn't have the intention on the inside to control you, that you feel the feeling of being controlled is enough for you to step aside and address that with the person. Because at first it can be exciting to, have someone who's all in, but it's subtle. It's subtle. And he may start by dropping comments about your clothes, your looks, a little negative about who your friends are, or he starts to pressure you to spend more time with him, or um, about how you should manage your life, especially if you're pursuing a career, pursuing school, pursuing a job. If he's pressuring you to spend more time with him, that takes you away from that. Look out for that. Next is he is possessive. So jealous behavior is one of the surest signs, because that person, it just tells you that that person does not look at you as a human. They look at you as property. They take ownership of you. And it's so important for you to have free will. And when someone is excessively jealous and they are possessive, you can think, oh, he just loves you. And you may not be receiving it that way because you may not like him like that. No, it's unhealthy. When someone shows signs of possessiveness, it is never a joke, you know? Um, if he tries to call you too many times per day, it kind of pops up where you are. He's kind of a hawk over your shoulders. You can't even send a text without him like looking. um but he goes on to make the distinction that if you have like a few jealous feelings, that's natural. um it's natural to be anxious about your partner's association with men, but if that person expects you to give up your freedom in order to accommodate his feelings, know that control is coming up. And the way a person may do that, it won't be as overt. It could be as not allowing you to go somewhere by yourself. Like you're a capable person, but they will not allow you to go somewhere on your own. And they volunteer to come with you everywhere. At first it could seem like yes, they're excited to run errands with you, but how they behave as well is really important. For example, the last experience I had, this person volunteered to go everywhere with me, but the way they behaved when they were everywhere with me really told me a lot. It's like they wanted it to be known, or like a marking their territory, that I belong to them. And it's very convoluted because the story itself is confusing, and that is also a red flag in itself. When you're in something that feels confusing, you need to leave. Like, love is clear, love is simple. But it was like they did certain behaviors that you ever see, like when a dog goes to like a fire hydrant or goes to somewhere to mark their territory. They like pee on the, not saying that that happened, but it's to liken it into a degrading way of marking your territory with someone, doing things they're uncomfortable doing things they set boundaries about that they're uncomfortable doing, in order to um really mark. And it makes that person feel stifled and they feel controlled. Like, I can't go somewhere without you hovering over me to mark your territory because of your own insecurities. That is not my job. It is your job to affirm yourself. Like, do you trust your partner? Do you trust this person? Have they shown you any behaviors that they will go certain ways? The person said, oh, they see how people stare at me and look at me and they're like saying damn, or he sees how people are looking at me around the corner. First of all, how do you have that much time to be examining how people are looking at me? And I didn't like that. I didn't like that feeling, and it's a red flag. It can be flattering, and it feels good to know somebody is kind of wildly in love with you and like wants you so badly. But Possessiveness is a sign that they don't love you as an independent human, but rather as like a guarded trophy object type of person. And after a while, you're going to start feeling suffocated by the constant vigilance. It's so fascinating that I said that previously in my own words when I said like feeling like someone is a hawk over you can be suffocating. And then he went on to say the same thing. You know, you feel suffocated by the constant vigilance. Um, the thing is, then he may say nothing is ever his fault. And see, it kind of crosses the realm of you having a first date. You're in the initial stages of getting to know this person, and you may have brought up certain behaviors to them, certain patterns to them that you're not comfortable with, and they may not outrightly just say it's all your fault, but how they handle it, do they take full responsibility and say, sorry, that won't happen again? Or do they try to make you feel like it's all in your head, you're misunderstanding them, you don't get them, um, that other people have accepted that in the past?